Have you ever wondered what one of the easiest strategies is to accumulate rental properties with using as little of your own money as possible? Today we will go over how you can accumulate 5 properties over the course of 5 years while only putting 5% down on each property. My name is Ashley Kerr, co-host of the Real Estate Rookie podcast and author of Real Estate Rookie, 90 Days to Your First Investment. If you haven't already read this book, you can find it in the BiggerPockets bookstore. I have heard continuous feedback how it is difficult in today's market to find good deals and acquire properties. We're going to lay out a plan where you can turn your primary residence into an investment. This method is going to be a wealth building tool for you. I am using my example for over the next 5 years, but really you could do this as long as you wanted or as short as you wanted. Let's start with the best financing you will get on a property is if it's your primary residence. This is excluding using creative finance such as seller finance. This is the best lending option at the majority of banks. You'll get better terms, including a better interest rate. Also, less money you need for your down payment. There are loan products like an FHA loan, which is a government-backed loan and is available to someone purchasing a primary residence. You can only have one FHA loan in your name at a time. For example, if you purchase a house with an FHA loan, then go on to turn that into a rental, want to buy another primary, you have to refinance out of the FHA loan to use an FHA loan to purchase your new one. Every time you refinance, you are paying closing costs, and we want to avoid that. An FHA loan has a great benefit that you can oftentimes only put 3.5% down on a property. The downside is that there are a lot of hoops you need to jump through, and the house has to go through an inspection. This inspection is different than the home inspection you get when you want to see what repairs and maintenance are needed. I remember when my cousin purchased a home with an FHA loan, they would only fund the house if there were railings on the stairway. The owners refused to do this, so I remember my uncle going and installing railings at the house before my cousin owned it so they could have it re-inspected by FHA to be able to pass the inspection and close on the loan. This may seem like a little thing, but coordinating with the sellers and the time it delays your loan can all add up. So as you can see, there are some downsides with the FHA loan, especially that you can only have one. For the purposes of this video, we are going to use a conventional loan to purchase each of our 5 properties. Fannie Mae will allow up to 10 mortgages in one person's name. So if you have a conventional mortgage that is backed by Fannie Mae, you will fit within the 10 mortgages. There are conventional loans that only require 5% down. You do not need to refinance into a different loan product like the FHA loan in order to get another one. Let's break this down into an action plan for you using the conventional loan product. First, you are going to get pre-approved. Have your budget in mind and then build out your buy box. Where do you want to live? What type of house? And this is very important. Will it make a good rental? Will you be able to rent it out to cover the expenses on the property? Are rentals desirable in that area? When you purchase the property, you are going to live there for 1 year. When you get close to that 1 year mark, you are going to go and get pre-approved to purchase a second house. Most loan products require you to live in a property for 1 year if it is a loan for your primary residence. There are circumstances where you can get out of that rule because you have military orders to move or need to relocate for your job. If you decide to vacate in less than a year without one of the established exemptions, you are considered to be committing occupancy fraud. Let's not do that. So in a perfect scenario, you will be closing on your second home on the 1 year anniversary of your first purchase. The lender will ask you, what are you doing with your first property? If you will retain it, and if yes, you will rent it out, or if you will sell it. You will let the lender know you're going to rent the property. They will ask for how much. This is so you can decrease your debt to income. With a second property, you will have 2 mortgage payments now on your debt, and most likely your income didn't drastically change in 1 year. If it did, that's great, but you may still get a better interest rate, decreasing your debt to income since it becomes less risky to lend to you. Now, there's a caveat. This is becoming more and more common where the lender wants the lease agreement to show what you are renting the property for and how much you are going to rent it for. Okay, so here's the problem. It can be a little difficult to rent your property out not knowing exactly when you are moving. For example, in New York State, it can take 45 to 60 days to close on a property. Here's what I recommend is listing your property for rent while you live there as soon as you go under contract. Set the move-in date for the worst case scenario for closing, as in what's the latest date you will close. You can ask your lender, attorney, or agent for a guideline on this. If your loan has a hiccup that delays it, you may have to find temporary housing so your tenant can move in. Hi mom, is the guest room available for a week? So just be prepared to have your house looking rent ready for showings and to estimate a move-in date for your resident so you can get loan approval for your second property. You'll move into that second property to have as your primary residence. The first property will be rented to cover your expenses on that property. I want to be realistic with you. Even though you are only putting 5% down for each of these properties, you do need to have reserves in place. What if you get a vacancy and all of a sudden have to cover 2 mortgages? What if you have to replace an HVAC system? The last one I replaced was $6,000. No matter how much money you put down, you still need to have these reserves in place. The good news is that you can have more money for reserves with only putting 5% down instead of 20%. So we are still ahead. Now that you are living in your second property, you are going to repeat the process. Live in it for 1 year, get pre-approved, turn the second property into a rental, and move into a new primary residence. So now you have 2 rentals and a primary. Each time only putting 5% down. For all my nerds out there, let's do a little math. And let's not cringe at these home prices that I'm using as examples if you live in a high cost of living city. This is an example, but totally achievable prices in a lot of markets. Okay, so remember this. This is going to be a rental and doesn't have to have high-end finishes unless you do want to have luxury rentals. Okay, let's start with house number 1. We purchased for $200,000. 5% down is $10,000. Our mortgage payment is going to be $1,137 a month without taxes and insurance. I'm just assuming a 6.5% interest rate and amortize over 30 years at a fixed rate, meaning that rate will stay the same throughout the life of the loan. We are going to say the insurance is $1,200 per year. Divided by 12 months is $100 per month. Obviously, I'm not choosing a property that needs flood or hurricane insurance. Property taxes are going to be $3,000 a year, which is $250 a month. Taxes are high in New York State, so I'm using that as an example. Let's put your monthly expenses at $1,487. Your tenant will pay all utilities and take care of mowing the lawn. Of course, you will have to account for repairs and maintenance, vacancy, capital improvements, and other variable costs. So we won't be calculating true cash flow. We will count on your reserves to cover those costs as they come up and save our cash flow to keep replenishing our reserves. Unless you get a bomb deal where you actually have a lot of cash flow, then we can use that to save for our next down payment. Either way, not going to be living off the cash flow for property 1. Let's say this property will rent for $1,600. That will put your cash flow at a measly $113 a month. I am being super conservative and showing you worst case scenario here, okay? You can find way better deals than this. Don't get discouraged. There is more to this than just the cash flow. You'll do this for each of the properties every year when you purchase a new one. As time goes on, you will realize time is your friend. On average, rents increase 3% per year. This will depend on your market and how often you choose to raise it. Your property taxes and insurance may increase too. The increase in rent should outperform any increase in taxes and insurance. To give you an example, I purchased property in 2017. My cash flow was around $300 a month. 5 years later, my cash flow was $800 per month, just from being able to increase rents in both units. So not only can you see an increase in cash flow, but you will have mortgage pay down by your resident. Every month, a little bit of the balance you owe is being paid down by the resident. So when you sell, you can recoup all that money you never had to pay. The property should also appreciate. The loan paydown and appreciation will give you equity in the property far beyond the 5% down payment you put on the property when you purchase it. This equity is adding to your net worth. To take things a step further, as you get into year 3 or 4, you can put a line of credit on one of the houses and tap into that equity to use for funding deals or completing rehabs. So I want to know who is going to try this. Who is up for getting 5 rentals in 5 years with only 5% down? Let me know in the comments why this would or wouldn't work for you. Are you able to get a better cash flow on each unit in your market than my example that makes it an even more attractive plan? So here's your homework if you are intrigued by this. Start looking at properties in your market where you want to live. What do properties go for that you would live in and could be good rentals? Calculate how much money you would need for your 5% down payment. Don't forget to include closing costs and reserves as capital needed. If you are already working with a lender, then you can ask them for a loan estimate disclosure. This is where it will give you an idea of how much you need for closing. If you already have a primary residence, you could turn that into a rental and move into another property to start the 5-year track. You are already 1 year ahead. I hope you have your wheels turning. If this isn't the path for you, hopefully it creates some curiosity of how you can create your own path to get your next deal. Thank you for watching, and make sure you are subscribed to the Real Estate Rookie YouTube so we can go over more options and scenarios for rookie investors. I'm Ashley Kerr, and you can find me on the Real Estate Rookie podcast and on BiggerPockets.com. Good luck on your investing journey.